My name is Ilani, and I'm 42 years old. Most days, I'm just a woman living a quiet life, running a small bookstore in a town where nothing much ever happens. The smell of old paper and fresh coffee usually fills my mornings, a calm that belies the storm I carry within me. I have a loving husband, David, and two incredible kids, Maya and Liam, who are thankfully safe and sound. We live a good life, a normal life, but normalcy is a fragile thing, easily shattered by a single moment, a single decision, or in my case, a single, terrifying premonition that everyone around me dismissed. The day everything changed, the day my world cleaved into before and after, was 5 years ago. It was the morning of August 14th, the day we were supposed to board Flight 714 to Hawaii. The sun was shining, a perfect summer day, but inside me, a cold dread was spreading, a relentless chill that made my skin prickle despite the warmth. I saw it, clear as day, a vision so vivid it felt more like a memory of something that had already happened. The plane, engulfed in flames, plummeting from the sky. I tried to warn them, my voice rising in a desperate plea, but they just laughed. My own family, my friends, even the airline staff, they all thought I was having a breakdown. They laughed at my warning, and it's a sound that still echoes in my nightmares, a chilling counterpoint to the silence that followed. That silence, that horrifying, deafening silence, is what truly haunts me. It's the silence of lives extinguished, of futures unwritten, of laughter abruptly cut short. It's the silence that reminds me that my family and I were the only ones to survive that flight. This isn't just a story about a plane crash. It's about the crushing burden of knowing, of being dismissed, and of living with the stark, horrifying reality of a premonition fulfilled. It's about how one person's ignored intuition can lead to unimaginable tragedy. If you've ever felt that chilling certainty in your gut, that undeniable whisper of impending doom, then you know a fraction of what I felt. Stay with me, and I'll tell you how we survived and what it cost us. Share your own experiences with intuition in the comments below, and let's explore the power of those unheard warnings. It started subtly, a low hum beneath the surface of my everyday life. For weeks leading up to our planned Hawaiian vacation, I'd been experiencing vivid, unsettling dreams. They weren't nightmares in the traditional sense, no monsters or chasing, but rather a profound sense of unease, a feeling of impending disaster tied to travel. I'd wake up with my heart pounding, drenched in sweat, a metallic taste in my mouth. David, bless his patient soul, would tell me it was just stress from planning the trip, from juggling work and kids. He'd rub my back and tell me to breathe, to relax. "It's a vacation, honey, not a military operation," he'd joke, trying to lighten the mood. But the feeling persisted, a nagging itch I couldn't scratch. I tried to shake it off, to convince myself it was just pre-trip jitters. We had booked this trip months in advance, a much-needed escape from the grind of our daily lives. Maya, our 10-year-old, was buzzing with excitement about surfing lessons, and Liam, 7, was already practicing his cannonballs in the bathtub, convinced he'd be swimming with dolphins. Their excitement was infectious, and I wanted so desperately to feel it too. I packed our bags, made mental checklists, and tried to focus on the idyllic beaches, the warm sun, and the vibrant culture of Hawaii. But with every folded shirt, every swimsuit tucked away, the feeling of dread intensified, morphing from a vague unease into something more concrete, more terrifying. It was a cold, creeping certainty that something was terribly wrong. The airport on that fateful morning was a symphony of bustling energy. Laughter, excited chatter, the rhythmic squeak of rolling luggage. It all blended into a hum that normally would have filled me with anticipation. But today it was a discordant noise grating on my already frayed nerves. Every step towards the gate felt like I was walking on quicksand, each breath a struggle. The moment it truly hit me like a physical blow was when we reached Gate B12. There it was, the majestic Boeing 747, Flight 714, gleaming under the harsh airport lights. As my gaze landed on it, the world around me seemed to tilt, the sounds fading into a distant echo. The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen force, and a wave of nausea washed over me. Then it happened. Not a dream, not a premonition, but a visceral, terrifying vision that unfolded before my eyes as if I were watching it on a giant screen. I saw the plane, not as it was then, pristine and powerful, but as a twisted, burning wreck. Flames licked at the fuselage, black smoke billowed into a pristine blue sky, and debris rained down, glittering like deadly confetti. I heard screams, muffled and distant, yet piercingly real. The scent of burning metal and jet fuel filled my nostrils, so potent it made me gag. It was so vivid, so immediate, that for a split second, I truly believed it was already happening. My knees buckled, and I would have fallen if David hadn't caught my arm. "Alani, what is it? Are you okay?" he asked, his voice laced with concern, pulling me back to the harsh reality of the busy terminal. But I wasn't okay. My heart was a frantic drum solo against my ribs, and cold sweat plastered my hair to my forehead. My voice, when it finally came, was a raspy whisper, barely audible above the general din. No, we can't get on that plane. It's going to crash, David. I saw it." David, his brow furrowed with worry, looked at me as if I'd suddenly started speaking in tongues. "Alani, what are you talking about? It's just a plane, honey. You're just stressed. Maybe you need to sit down." But I couldn't sit down. The vision was seared into my mind, fresh and horrifying. "No, you don't understand. I saw it. It's going to crash. We can't go." My voice rose, a desperate plea, attracting the attention of other passengers. Liam, usually so boisterous, looked up at me with wide, frightened eyes, sensing the urgency in my tone. Maya, ever the logical one, tried to reason with me. "Mom, what's wrong? Planes don't just crash. It's safe." "No, it's not. Please, David, believe me. I know this sounds crazy, but I know it. We have to get off this flight." I clutched his arm, my nails digging into his skin, trying to shake him awake to the danger I saw so clearly. David, while clearly distressed by my outburst, still tried to soothe me. "Honey, you're scaring the kids. Come on, let's just get on board. You'll feel better once we're in the air." But I knew I wouldn't. I turned to Maya and Liam, tears streaming down my face. "Kids, please listen to Mommy. We can't go on this plane. Please." Their faces were a mixture of confusion and fear, mirroring the expressions of the other passengers who were now openly staring. A flight attendant approached, a polite but firm smile plastered on her face. "Is everything all right, ma'am? We're about to begin boarding." "No, everything is not all right." I practically screamed, my voice cracking. "This plane is going to crash. You have to stop it. You have to warn everyone." My words were met with uneasy murmurs and incredulous stares. Some people scoffed, a few laughed outright, dismissively shaking their heads. The flight attendant's smile tightened. "Ma'am, I understand you're feeling anxious, but we assure you, our flights are perfectly safe. If you continue to disrupt the boarding process, we may have to ask you to leave." The dismissal, the outright disbelief, was like a slap in the face. My own family, people I loved and trusted, thought I was losing my mind. My friends, the Millers, who were traveling with us, tried to intervene, gently coaxing me to calm down. "Alani, come on, you're being ridiculous," Sarah Miller said, her voice laced with an uncomfortable politeness. "It's just nerves. Let's get on the plane and get this vacation started." But I couldn't. The vision was too real, too terrifying. I knew with every fiber of my being that if we boarded that plane, we wouldn't survive. The tension in the air was palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket of disbelief and growing irritation from those around us. My pleas, once desperate, now felt futile, bouncing off a wall of skepticism. But even as their faces hardened with annoyance, my conviction only grew stronger, fueled by a primal fear for my family. The flight attendant, now joined by a supervisor, escalated their tone, their politeness wearing thin. "Ma'am, this is your final warning. Either you board the plane quietly, or we will have to remove you and your family from the flight." The threat hung in the air, a stark choice. Succumb to the pressure and board a plane I knew was doomed, or face the humiliation of being escorted out, potentially ruining our vacation and making myself out to be a raving lunatic. David, caught between his desire to calm me and his instinct to protect his family, looked torn. He knew me, he knew I wasn't prone to hysterics. But this was beyond anything he'd ever seen. "Alani, honey, please. Think about the kids. Everyone is staring. We'll be fine." He tried to lead me towards the boarding gate, his grip gentle but firm. But I resisted, digging my heels in. "No, David. We are not getting on that plane. If you go, I'm staying here. And I'm taking the kids with me." My voice was raw, laced with an intensity that startled even myself. Liam, sensing the escalating conflict, started to whimper, burying his face in David's leg. Maya, ever observant, looked from my tear-streaked face to the stern faces of the airline staff, then back to the plane. A flicker of doubt, a nascent fear, seemed to cross her young features. The supervisor, a stern-faced woman with tightly pulled-back hair, spoke with an air of finality. "Ma'am, this is an official request. If you refuse to board, you will forfeit your tickets, and we will consider this a voluntary cancellation." Forfeit our tickets. All that money, all that planning gone. And for what? A crazy dream? A premonition? It sounded insane, even to my own ears. But the image of the burning plane, the screams, the acrid smell, it was so real, so terrifyingly etched into my mind. I couldn't shake it. I couldn't ignore it. Then so be it, I declared, my voice trembling but resolute. We are not going. David, faced with my unwavering resolve, sighed. He looked at our children, then back at me, a silent conversation passing between us. He didn't understand, couldn't comprehend the depth of my terror, but he trusted me. Or perhaps, more accurately, he was willing to take a chance on my madness rather than risk losing me. With a heavy heart, he turned to the airline staff. We won't be boarding this flight. Please process our cancellation. The supervisor raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by his decision. Are you absolutely sure, sir? There will be no refunds. Yes, we're sure, David said, his voice quiet but firm. He took my hand, a silent gesture of support that meant the world to me. The Millers, however, were less understanding. Are you serious, David? You're letting her pull this? This is ridiculous. We're losing out on thousands of dollars for a crazy whim. Sarah's voice was sharp with accusation. It's not a whim, Sarah, I said, my voice calmer now, a strange sense of peace settling over me despite the chaos around us. It's a warning. They scoffed, shaking their heads in disgust. Well, enjoy your stay in the airport then, Mark Miller sneered, as they turned and boarded the plane without another word. Their judgment, their disdain stung, but it was nothing compared to the fear that had gripped me just moments before. As the final boarding call echoed through the terminal and the gate closed with a definitive click, a wave of relief washed over me so profound it almost brought me to my knees. We were safe. At least, for now. We were off that plane. The airport terminal, once a place of bustling excitement, now felt strangely hollow. The cheers and laughter of vacationers faded into the background, replaced by the persistent echo of my own frantic heartbeat. It was an eerie calm, a surreal quiet that settled over us as we watched the final passengers disappear down the jet bridge, oblivious to the fate that awaited them. We sat there, a small, isolated island in the vast sea of the terminal, the sounds of distant announcements and hurried footsteps providing a surreal soundtrack to our shared disbelief. David ordered us some lukewarm coffee and lukewarm hot chocolate for the kids, attempting to create some semblance of normalcy, but the air was thick with unspoken questions. Liam, still a little teary-eyed, clung to David's side, while Maya, her usual bright curiosity dimmed, watched me with a mixture of confusion and a nascent understanding. She hadn't seen what I saw, but she had felt the intensity of my fear. I tried to explain it to David again, the words tumbling out in a rush, desperate to make him understand the vivid horror of the vision. He listened patiently, his hand gently squeezing mine, but I could see the skepticism in his eyes. He tried to rationalize it, to find a logical explanation for my outburst. Maybe you just overworked yourself, Ilani. Or it was that documentary we watched about plane crashes last week. It just got to you. He was trying to be kind, to offer comfort, but his words felt like a dull knife twisting in the wound of my ignored warning. We decided to head home. The idea of rebooking another flight, another destination, felt impossible. The joy of vacation had evaporated, replaced by a lingering unease. We took a taxi back, the silence in the car punctuated only by the soft hum of the engine and the occasional sigh from David. The kids were unusually quiet, sensing the tension that still crackled between us. It was almost an hour later, as we were pulling into our driveway, that David's phone rang. It was his brother, Mark, his voice strained and urgent. David, turn on the news. It's Flight 714. The one you were supposed to be on. My blood ran cold. The phone was on speaker, and I could hear the panicked voice of a news anchor, interspersed with the wailing of sirens. Unconfirmed reports of a major incident involving Flight 714. Eyewitnesses report a large explosion. Debris seen falling from the sky. My hands flew to my mouth, stifling a scream. David's face drained of all color, his eyes fixed on the dashboard. Liam, startled by the sudden shift in atmosphere, started to cry. Maya, however, stood frozen, her small hand covering her mouth, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. She hadn't heard my premonition, but she was hearing the news, the cold, stark reality of it. We rushed inside, turning on the television. The screen flickered to life, showing chaotic scenes of emergency vehicles, smoke rising in the distance, and the grim faces of reporters struggling to convey the enormity of the disaster. The words "no survivors" flashed across the bottom of the screen, a chilling, final pronouncement that echoed the vision I had seen just hours before. Flight 714, The plane we were supposed to be on had crashed. Everyone on board was dead. The world seemed to spin around me. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and I sank to the floor, my legs no longer able to support me. The faces of the passengers, the flight attendants, the Millers, they all flashed before my eyes. All those people who had laughed, who had dismissed me, who had gone ahead and boarded that plane. They were gone. And we, somehow impossibly, were still here. The silence in our living room was deafening, broken only by the muffled sobs of my children and the drone of the news reporter's voice. The vivid images on the screen, once a terrifying premonition, were now a horrifying reality, a grim testament to the unfathomable depths of human suffering. The air was thick with unspoken questions, with the chilling weight of what could have been. The days and weeks that followed were a blur of shock, grief, and an overwhelming sense of unreality. The news was saturated with details of the crash, the heartbreaking stories of the victims, and the agonizing search for answers. Every television screen, every radio station, every newspaper headline screamed the same devastating truth: Flight 714 gone. For us, the survivors who weren't survivors, the burden was immense. We were alive, but at what cost? We had been spared, but hundreds of others hadn't. The what-ifs haunted my every waking moment and often my dreams. What if I hadn't been so insistent? What if David hadn't believed me? What if we had just boarded that plane, dismissing my premonition as a fluke? The thought was a cold, sharp blade to my heart. The initial relief I felt that day at the airport had long since evaporated, replaced by a crushing weight of survivor's guilt. Why us? Why were we spared when so many others weren't? The questions circled endlessly in my mind, a relentless torment. The Millers, our friends who had scoffed at my warnings and boarded the plane, were among the victims. The news of their deaths hit David particularly hard. He had known Mark since childhood, and the thought that their last interaction with me had been one of ridicule and anger gnawed at him. He became withdrawn, lost in his own grief, and the stark realization of how close we had come to sharing their fate. He rarely spoke of my premonition, but I could see the new, unspoken respect in his eyes, a silent acknowledgement of the inexplicable. Maya, initially confused, quickly grasped the magnitude of what had happened. She was too young to fully process the concept of death on such a scale, but she understood that her mother had saved them. She would often look at me with a profound, almost reverent gaze, a silent testament to her burgeoning understanding of the inexplicable. Liam, still very young, struggled more. He didn't fully comprehend the details of the crash, but he knew something terrible had happened, and that Mommy had been very, very scared. He became more clingy, often waking up from nightmares, needing reassurance that we were all still here, together. Our once bustling home became quieter, shadowed by an invisible cloud of grief. We avoided talking about the flight, about my warning, about the victims, not out of disrespect, but because the pain was too raw, the memory too fresh. But the silence itself spoke volumes. We were a family who had witnessed a miracle, albeit a dark one, and we carried the weight of it, silently together. The world moved on, but for us, time had fractured, leaving an indelible scar. The scar of that day, though unseen, remained a constant presence in our lives. It was a reminder of the fragility of existence, the thin veil between life and death. As time slowly limped forward, the initial shock began to fade, but the profound shift in our perspective and the chilling lessons learned settled deep within our souls, a quiet, insistent hum. 5 years have passed since Flight 714 crashed. The headlines have long since faded, replaced by new tragedies, new crises. Life, in its relentless way, has moved forward. My bookstore thrives, a cozy haven of stories and solace. David has found a way to cope, his quiet strength a constant anchor for our family. Maya is now a teenager, brilliant and insightful, and Liam, a boisterous preteen, is learning to navigate the world with a curious blend of innocence and a quiet understanding of the unexpected. But the echoes of that day are still very much a part of our lives. I rarely talk about it outside of our immediate family. How do you explain to someone that you knew a plane was going to crash, that you saw it, and that your family was saved because you refused to board? Most people wouldn't believe it, or they'd try to offer logical, scientific explanations that simply don't apply. The experience has made me a different person, more attuned to subtle shifts, to the whispers of intuition. I no longer dismiss those gut feelings, those inexplicable urges, no matter how illogical they may seem. I've learned to trust that inner voice, even when it sounds like madness. Our family vacations are now almost exclusively by car or short, regional flights where I can rationalize the journey. The thought of stepping onto a large commercial aircraft still sends a shiver down my spine, a cold reminder of the inferno I witnessed in my mind's eye. We visit the local memorial for the victims of Flight 714 every year, a silent pilgrimage to honor those who perished, to acknowledge the unfathomable tragedy. We light candles, lay flowers, and stand in quiet contemplation, a stark reminder of the fragile thread that separates life from oblivion. It's our way of remembering, of acknowledging that our survival came at an immense cost to others. We've also become more appreciative of the small moments, the everyday joys. A family dinner, a board game night, a walk in the park. These simple things hold a deeper meaning now. We understand, on a visceral level, that life is precious and fleeting, and that every moment is a gift. The laughter of my children, the warmth of David's hand in mine. These are the true treasures, amplified by the shadow of what could have been. We live with the echoes of that day, not as a constant torment, but as a silent, powerful teacher, shaping our perspectives and reminding us of the profound mystery that lies beyond our understanding. The quiet hum of our bookstore, once a comforting melody, now resonates with a deeper, more profound meaning. It's a testament to resilience, a sanctuary built on the fragile foundation of a second chance. The echoes of that day may never fully fade, but they no longer haunt us. Instead, they serve as a constant reminder of the unseen forces that shape our destinies. Today, my family and I live a life forever altered by the chilling premonition that saved us. David, once skeptical, now trusts my intuition implicitly, a silent understanding passing between us whenever a strange feeling arises. Maya, now 15, occasionally asks me about the visions, her scientific mind grappling with the inexplicable, but her belief in my experience unwavering. Liam, 12, simply knows that Mom has a special sense, and it saved our lives. We are survivors, not of the crash itself, but of a fate that would have been ours, had I not listened to that terrifying, persistent voice within. The key lesson from our story is simple, yet profound. Trust your intuition. In a world that often prioritizes logic and dismisses the unexplained, there is immense power in listening to that inner voice, that gut feeling, even when it seems irrational or goes against common sense. Sometimes, our intuition speaks to us in ways we can't explain, offering warnings or guidance that can literally be life-saving. Don't let the laughter of others, the skepticism of the world, or even your own doubts, silence that vital inner wisdom. I share our story not for sympathy, but as a testament to the inexplicable forces that shape our lives. Perhaps it will encourage you to pay closer attention to your own inner whispers, to honor those inexplicable feelings that arise. Have you ever had an experience where your intuition saved you, or warned you of something important? I invite you to share your stories in the comments below. Let's create a space where these profound, often dismissed, experiences can be acknowledged and discussed. My growth from that terrifying day has been immense. I no longer fear being labeled crazy for what I feel or what I know. Instead, I embrace the inexplicable, understanding that some truths exist beyond the realm of logic. We survived, not just the physical danger, but the mental and emotional aftermath, emerging stronger, more connected, and forever grateful for that unheard warning. Our lives are a testament to the chilling power of intuition and the quiet strength found in trusting it.